I just know before this is over, I'm gonna need a whole lot of serious therapy. Look at my eye twitching.
Man, what are you doing? Once you have a man with no legs, you never go back, baby.
You fat, I'm muscle. Oh, look at my little Bill. He's a little Hercules. Show me muscle again.
Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of a podcast feature known as Podcast, and host of a brand new podcast program called P.C.E, which stands for Post Concert Energy. Today, DVG is here to join me in the studio to discuss a show that we saw way back in the 80s, 1987 to be exact. And if we're going to get more specific, November 6, 1987. Of course, we're talking about Eddie Murphy and the Raw Tour. Let us bring in DVG. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well, W. How are you?
I'm doing great. So last time we spoke, we were going in great detail about Taylor Swift, but this is going to be a little different.
about a pure 180 as you can take from that. I don't think I would have been wanting to take my teenage daughter to the Eddie Murphy Raw tour, but we went as teenagers, so looking forward to reminiscing.
And that we shall do. Before we actually retrace those steps regarding that special concert show, tell the listeners kind of the impact that Eddie Murphy has had on you, whether it could be stand-up or his movies, anything you want to share. What do you appreciate about him?
Well, to me, Eddie Murphy was, and still is in a lot of ways, the funniest person I've ever seen. When some of his first movies came out, 48 Hours, Trading Places, those types of movies, I had never seen anything like it other than maybe some Richard Pryor movies that I think I watched at your house, or maybe some Steve Martin movies. I thought those two were the two funniest people alive until I saw Eddie Murphy, not only in those movies, but on Saturday Night Live, and how he was just such a kind of a breath of fresh air on that show after kind of the original wave of famous comedians had moved on from Saturday Night Live. I felt like it was kind of flailing, and then here comes this comedic genius to give him a real shot in the arm, and had so many memorable characters on that show. So I think he just hit it at that time when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, where he was just the funniest person and had just a string of box office smash type movies in the 80s that were must-see events for a young DVG.
I would concur with that. And I would also say that for me, his voice impersonations really caught my attention. The way that he was able to imitate regular people on the street or global celebrities. And he did it in a way that I never saw it as mean-spirited. And he did it in a way that was pushing the envelope in terms of all his profanity. But the skits that he built around those people were things that we could understand. For example, the ice cream man. Most people can remember when the ice cream man would come to their neighborhood. And the way that he did that in his other stand-up, Delirious, there was something very human about it. When I think of Eddie Murphy, those are the things that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, when you talk about some of the parodies or impressions that he did, as soon as you said that, I wore out my Best of Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live VHS cassette that I had back in the day. And as soon as you said that, I immediately thought of the James Brown hot tub party, which was hilarious. But again, I think respectful, not mean spirited, and him doing Stevie Wonder and same sort of thing. Could be an easy person to take cheap shots at or parody, and yet just well done. And I think warm hearted, not edgy or mean spirited at all. And I think he's to be commended for that, for knowing how to push it to the edge, but not cross over into disrespectful territory.
Right. When Delirious came out and we had watched it 2 million times,
Conservatively.
the fact that you, me, George, Kevin, Nathan, whoever it was like we had formed this little Eddie Murphy community based around that movie. And we could quote that thing time and time again. And I still quote it quietly under my breath.
Right.
But yeah. So with this Raw tour that he performed at the Oakland Coliseum, November 6th, 1987, share some of the memories that you have of that evening.
I think my first and overwhelming memory of that was I distinctly remember going with my dad, who, as you well know, never took us to concerts. That was not his thing. Wasn't a big music guy, but he thought Eddie Murphy was hilarious in his movies. And I just remember the cringe factor of being a 13-year-old and talking my dad into taking us to this tour. And I'm pretty sure my dad is expecting like Gumby and Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. And I mean, obviously he knew he's, very foul mouthed, probably a lot of swearing and stuff, but whoa, not a lot of over the top sexual content and risque stories and whatnot. So I just remember the look on my dad's face, like 15 minutes into it, he's like, uh-oh, this wasn't what I was expecting. And just feeling that classic teenage awkwardness of sitting there with my dad, kind of being like, yeah, maybe I didn't tell him the whole story of what this show was gonna be about. Yeah. Other than that, my main feeling was, wow, this is the biggest star in the world, and he's in Oakland, and we get to see him perform. We had watched Delirious a billion times, and I can't believe we actually get to see his newer version of that, but live and in person. I just thought that was the most amazing thing. Yeah. How about you?
Well, it's interesting that you started with your father, because that's where I'm going first.
Yeah.
It's so clear in my mind going with your father because, one, as you alluded to earlier, just getting him to take us to a concert. Oh, fantastic. Second thing is, I don't know if you remember, but he drove us in the big red caddy, the bomber.
This thing was huge. Yeah.
And I remember driving over the San Mateo Bridge, and I just kind of felt the hum of the highway, the bridge, the feel of all that. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we're going to go see this. And then the third thing I clearly remember is when we got inside and when we were kind of ushered to our seats, section 113 to be exact.
Wow.
And the only reason why I know that, for all the listeners, I'm actually holding up the ticket stub right now. But when we got inside, we got to our seats, I realized, oh my God, I don't fit into this community. It felt a little awkward. And I didn't see anyone else our age. So there was a small level of discomfort. But once the lights came down and he came out in that big kind of blue purplish suit, just like he had Delirious, but that one was orange. I was like, all right. Now I did a little bit of homework, Dave, and this was based on the movie, right? The stand-up movie. He had used the word fuck over 220 times. And that had surpassed the Brian De Palma movie, Scarface. and they were going to give this movie a rated X because of how much profanity was used. And I don't remember the first skit, but I remember 5 or 10 minutes, and I was looking over your dad. I was like, just like you said, like, wait, should I have taken my son and his best friend to this? But there is a performance I do. There is a skit there where he's talked about Italians and how they behave after they see the movie Rocky. Oh my God. I can't even go over it because it's pretty crass. But again, impersonations, not mean spirited, funny, accurate as hell, according to how he perceived it. And something that I could latch onto. Rocky. Everyone could understand that. So I remember that little skit. And yeah, afterwards, I remember we got back in the car, and I don't know if you remember this. You and I were starting to talk like him a little bit. And obviously we had to tone it down. But yeah, I think it was just such a good experience. And it was on my father's birthday. That's another reason why I remember it quite well. Because I was going to go out to dinner with my dad and the family, but I was like, no, Eddie Murphy trumps that one.
Why didn't we bring your dad along? I'm sure he would have loved it.
Oh, right. What the hell is this? Even though my dad knew of Delirious because my mom certainly helped with that.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that comes to mind in seeing that live was just the infectious energy that he brought to the stage. My wife is a big comedy fan. We've seen many stand-up comedians, and I think it's hard to stand up there, just you and a mic, and really capture the audience, really control
The room.
the stage, control the room. Exactly. And I've never seen anyone better. That was the first real stand-up comedian I saw, and I've seen plenty others. And there was something so compelling about watching him on stage, the way he strutted around and just owned the place, and his cadence, and he knew when to talk, and he knew when to pause and to sort of egg on the audience or soak it up. And just such a commanding presence as a stand-up. You know, they sort of talk about some rock stars just have it.
Yes.
And are just the compelling front men or front people or virtuoso guitarists or whatever you want to, call it. But rarely have I seen a stand-up comic be able to do that the way Eddie Murphy did.
Yeah. And I remember after some of those skits, the people would be howling and they would say, go, Eddie, you go, Eddie.
Mhm.
A real strong affinity for his craft that people could really get behind. And I also felt like 1987, so he was starting to take off as a movie star, but I didn't see him as a movie star. I literally saw him as a stand-up comedian.
Hmm.
And again, coming off the heels of Delirious, which I think is still one of the greatest stand-up performances ever, there are a lot of expectations for this tour. I don't know how much it made in comparison, but I wasn't disappointed.
No, and that's another thing that I remember being impressed by is it would have been real easy to roll out the greatest hits or rehash things from Delirious or Saturday Night Live or his movies. And as far as I can remember, and it was a long time ago, I think it was completely new. Like everything in it was, or at least most of it was brand new material. And when you're up there for 90 minutes, that's not easy to do. So I was quite impressed with that too. He did not rest on his laurels after the success of Delirious and Beverly Hills Cop and all the other whatever hit movies that come out. At that point, he went and completely redid everything, and I felt like gave the audience 110%. I remember being very satisfied afterwards, also saying, "Oh, those tickets were expensive, but it was worth it."
Do you remember how your dad felt overall? Did you ever talk to him about that evening?
I think he felt dirty. He felt violated. I think he needed a shower when he got home. No, I think he thought it was funny. I just think maybe he felt a little bit bad about taking a couple 13-year-olds to it. I think especially when he got there, like you said, there were a lot of 20 and 30 somethings in the crowd. I'd say there were not, if there were teenagers, they were, 18-year-olds. There were not youngish kids there. So I think maybe he felt a little guilty. He felt like he might get a tongue lashing from your parents.
He didn't win Father of the Year for that?
Although your parents let us watch Delirious endlessly. It's like 9-year-olds, so I don't think they could have said much about seeing a raunchy stand-up tour.
Oh my God, no way. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a good memory. And it's nice when you can go to a show with a parent.
No, I mean my dad definitely enjoyed it and was glad that he went. I just think it was not what he was expecting, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
He had not seen Delirious, so that's for sure.
Good stuff. All right, we're going to wrap this up with some Eddie Murphy movie recommendations for our listeners. So why don't you pick 2 or 3?
Well, I wanted to break this down into 2 segments because I think another impressive thing about Eddie Murphy is how he's reinvented himself. So I very fondly remember his early work, 48 Hours, Trading Places, the Beverly Hills Cop movies, Boomerang, I think was underrated, and just thinking that he was hilarious. But I also love the fact that there are a lot of his movies that I can share with my daughter, and I have shared. I think his vocal work in the Shrek movies is amazing. Again, bringing a real energy to the role as Donkey in those movies. We've watched the Dr. Dolittle movies, Nutty Professor. So I think it would have been very safe and easy for him to coast as Eddie Murphy comedy genius and just make random comedies, whether they're good or bad, it didn't matter. But he said, you know what? I'm going to make some films for kids. And, I really think he could have won an Oscar for his role in Dreamgirls too. His turn in that movie and a couple other dramatic turns has also been impressive. So I think his versatility has been amazing. If I had to pick one just for me, it would be the first Beverly Hills Cop. I thought that was just perfect in that it was hilarious, but also showed that he can, I don't know that I'd call it an action movie, maybe an action comedy, but he wasn't just going to be the sort of funny motor mouth comedian like in 48 Hours, but he could do physical comedy and action really well also. So yeah, I would, if I had to choose one, it would be Beverly Hills Cop, although I really enjoy Trading Places also.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, him and his sort of fish out of water roles are just hilarious. Comedy gold.
Billy Ray Valentine.
There you go. Good stuff.
It's hard because that early part of his career, starting 82, when he was Reggie Hammond.
Reggie.
48 Hours. 48 Hours is such a gripping movie. I mean, there's some really powerful scenes in that film. And it's coupled beautifully with the comedy that it gives you that pause to breathe a little bit because it's actually pretty intense. For me, Coming to America, the 88 version, is so genius. It's slapsticky, but it's done in a way, again, impersonations, but this is where you really got to see him stretch himself by becoming different characters.
Uh-huh.
And then the chemistry with Arsenio Hall was just fantastic.
Yeah, and James Earl Jones. Yeah.
It's James Earl Jones. And I think John Landis got a hold of that one too and directed it, as he did with Eddie Murphy in Trading Places. But I'm going to name one I feel people forget about. It's called Bowfinger.
Yeah, with Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came out in 99. And it's just a solid comedy. but it's not like in your face, look at me, I'm going to be loud and obnoxious. He plays it down a bit. So does Steve Martin. And on the page, you're like thinking, is this going to work? Works beautifully. So yeah, and again, he kind of plays some different characters in that. So those are a couple of my picks. And even the last Beverly Hills Cop that came out 2 years ago, not bad at all.
It was very enjoyable. I did not enjoy the Coming to America sequel. My wife in particular is a huge Coming to America movie. So we rewatched that before we saw the sequel and really enjoyed it. Like you said, it was better than I remembered. Sequel, I thought was pretty flat. I didn't really enjoy it, but we did watch the most recent Beverly Hills Cop movie and really enjoyed it. It was very heartwarming and sweet in a lot of ways, while also being a decent police detective action movie as well. So I thought that was definitely a worthwhile watch.
You had alluded to Richard Pryor, and I think my closing words are going to be, I never got to see him live other than his HBO stuff. So I felt like this was kind of a replacement that we got to have this opportunity. And I'm sure Eddie Murphy could find it somewhere that Richard Pryor was a huge inspiration for him, right? In fact, I think his suit was a cross between Michael Jackson and Richard Pryor, if I'm not mistaken, in the Delirious movie. But I always felt like Richard Pryor, there was a darkness with him because of his difficult lifestyle. And it was kind of refreshing to have Eddie Murphy just on the other side of it.
Uh-huh.
So it was a nice contrast because we were watching both of them.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries on Richard Pryor. I saw one more recently on Steve Martin that really talked about how his stand-up in the late 70s and early 80s, this is Steve Martin in particular, along with Richard Pryor, really paved the way for bigger stand-up comedy tours in the future, like Eddie Murphy, because towards the end of the 70s, it seemed like stand-up comedy tours were not really a thing. And here comes Richard Pryor and Steve Martin selling out big venues, doing their very different comedy type thing. But yeah, I think you definitely see a kindred spirit in Richard Pryor and also with Steve Martin as sort of trailblazers for this is how you can do comedy at a much bigger stage. And I think Eddie Murphy, as those two faded away a little bit, at least in the stand-up comedy, maybe went more into the movie route. Eddie Murphy said, okay, there's a void here and I'm going to jump right in and take it even bigger. Yeah. We saw him was where the Golden State Warriors play. I mean, it's a 20,000 seat arena. I mean, that's crazy.
I know.
To fill that out. And I think that entire tour was sold out playing basketball stadiums. I mean, amazing.
Yeah. What a special night. Eddie Murphy, the Raw Tour, Oakland Coliseum Arena, Friday, November 6th. Any closing words?
I can't think of anything other than I really reflect on that night as a special one because it might be the only time you and I have seen a famous stand-up comedian together. I mean, we've been to a zillion concerts, but I am really racking my brain, and I think that night had such a unique factor, not only with my dad being in attendance, which was rare. He wasn't really into concerts and stuff or sort of bigger events and crowds, but just in terms of you and I seeing a non-concert event. I'll have to rack my brain on that one. But I think because of that, there was sort of electricity in the air and sort of seeing, okay, the biggest star in the world. And wow, we're doing something different. It's not a band. It's not a solo singer. It's a comedy show. And I think that that really even gave that night a little more shine to it and made the event a little more unique and powerful.
Yes. And I would also say that we were probably the only ones out of our friends who'd gone to see anything like that.
Yeah. Good point.
And that always makes me feel good.
we were the only ones who successfully duped our parents to take Eddie Murphy. All the other parents were more sensible. Exactly. they wouldn't be manipulated, but we found a way.
Eddie Murphy. Good discussion, my friend. And by the way, since you like Shrek, and I know people listening appreciate the Shrek movies, and of course, Donkey, 2026, Shrek number 5 is on the way.
I had heard that, and I think they've milked that franchise a bit. I thought the second one was actually pretty decent. I think I saw the third. I don't think I saw the fourth. Yeah, I know these movie companies love a good familiar brand, but who knows? Maybe they'll find something new or creative to do, but might be time to put that one to rest. We'll see.
Great talk and great post-concert energy. Thanks, DVG. Good catching up with you.
It's great to talk to you, William. Happy to come on anytime. It's always a blast.
And you are welcome anytime, and I think you'll be joining me later as we get deeper into the timeline of these shows that I went to. So, who knows what show that will be for? Maybe Lord Huron? Maybe a little Midnight Oil? The Cure? Who knows? Take care, everyone. My name is W. And remember, great comedy is all around us. You just have to keep your ears open. Ciao. Sit down.